Last week I found this plastic TV phone holder at the dollar store. Thought it'd be a fun project to make out of wood. I provide free printable plans for this project, and you can make the cutout fit any size phone. Let's do it. I was playing around with sizing and material thickness when I had built these two before the official plans were complete. However, this guy I had made with just 2 pieces of wood. They are mill thickness, so they're 7/8 of an inch thick, not 3/4 like we're all used to. 7/8 of an inch thick brings it to pretty close to the cheapy one that I had bought at the dollar store. And this guy, I'd actually used a board. I cut it out so it was a template for my phone. Used the router, routed out underneath, and I had to route out the inside piece. It got messy pretty quick. It's a little tricky to align all this stuff, plus the router. The phone fits in it like a dream. Once I had built this one using the plans, it's a lot easier because of how you cut things out and how things are lining up. Love that. It is 7/8 thick, so 3 of those. I think it'll look a lot better once I step down to 3/4 inch. I planed this board down to 3/4 inch, so I can still use black walnut because I think that looks beautiful. And also that way, if you guys are using just a stock 1x6, 1x8 board, you could build this project at home as well using lumber that you can actually find in the store. You guys see in the background we're playing a Who's the Boss video while filming a Who's the Boss video. It's like putting bacon in mac and cheese. It's a lot of flavors going on. So you're going to print out the plans. We're going to roughly cut out the shapes. Before I go gluing anything down, I want to find out how big to make the cutouts for my device. I'm not using my actual phone because it's a Samsung Fold, so it's super thick. And the ratio, it'd look dumb inside of one of those. So I'm going to use this phone I actually used when that phone was getting repaired. Now, if you're not making it to fit your specific device, you are going to cut it out to the exact size of this grid. Samsung devices are large in every direction. iPhones are a little bit shorter than they are wide. And these, they're just lengthy. So this grid is the exact same size that somebody in marketing decided to make this. Fun. Thank you. Otherwise, you're going to take your phone. You're going to put her face down just so your camera bumps and stuff don't get in the way. It's going to move things around. It does make it kind of goosey. And you're going to trace around it. Now you can see I have one spot on top and bottom, and then I have no space on the sides. So that's how big I'm going to make mine. So knowing that I need one grid in, and the full grid for the center. Now that is to get the exact size of the device because that cutout has to fit your phone into it. The front, however, does not need to be that big because you don't want your phone to fall out of the front. So what I like to do, find out what this grid is. This one, I deduct 2 grid because I don't want it to cover up too much of the screen. If I want to swipe down or operate the phone while it's in the holder, that makes it dreamy. This one is outside, so I'm going to come in 2. And I'm going to come in 2. This guy, they are in 1 and 1. So I'm going to come in 3, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, no. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. And that is how big my phone cutout's going to be. Now you will use whatever method you're going to use to get these pieces of paper onto your board. I like to use Elmer's Craft Bond repositionable glue stick. Works like a dream for me. You can see it's getting pretty gross. Glue your project down. Grain direction is important on these as well. You can see with this one, I actually had the boards going this direction for the top and middle. In the bottom, the grain was the other direction. So it kind of gives it a different color hue. Oops. Make sure all of them are facing the same direction so you get all end grain and all whatever that grain is called. And I also like to do it this direction just because it's a little stronger for the grain than if I'd gone this way. I can't go this way because the board's too thick. So this way is the winner. Repositionable glue sticks, people. I need to fit 2 more pieces on here. I am cutting out 2 of the television phone holder projects. That way I can show you how to make the feet and also how to cut the knobs out if you like that a little bit more. This guy I have perfectly dialed in because I have a bigger bumper on the bottom than the top. So it is dialed in to be the exact size of my phone screen. It's not centered, but that's all right. And another thing to mention, some phones have different rounded edges of the screen. So when you're cutting out these guys, some of them might just take a 3/4 inch. That's what I used for mine. The one that's made for the iPhone, because I traced around the phone originally, you have to step up to like 1.5 inches because it's a very rounded corner. Samsung devices, they're going back to square. It's just, there's so many variations. Honestly, I would just do a 3/4. And then for the back, these guys, they are on a centering line. So if you want to make them a little bigger, a little smaller, you can. That's all up to you. I would cut them out with 1 3/4 inches. However, if you wanted to support wireless charging on the back of these, you could not do it with 1 3/4 inches. It's got to be a little bit bigger. Even if you cut out the back, that kind of would match the front. That'd give you the space for wireless charging. It'd give you a little bit of camera cutouts. It's getting complicated. Let's get back to it. If you are using your drill to cut out the backs, grab a hole saw kit, 1 3/4, drill those initial holes, and then use your jigsaw to cut in between them for that finished cutout. But why are we putting a cutout in here anyway? Well, just if you're using this as a TV, you're probably going to be playing a lot of videos through it. Phones get hot when they're processing such media, and this will give it a little bit of area so that it can get some cool air so it just doesn't overheat. Even with the bandsaw, you guys cannot cut out the interior shapes with the bandsaw. You have to use either the jigsaw or a scroll saw. I'm not a big fan of my scroll saw because the blade just goes wherever it wants to go. I think it's because it's a really thin blade. Experts, what's going on? Is it because it's a thin blade? Is it because the tension's not right? Or is it because the speed's not right? That's nice. What's going on with the scroll saw? Because I'm not having a good time. To cut out with the jigsaw, I just throw down a couple pieces of foam. For the front, I am following that exact same method, 3/4 inch Forstner bit this time to drill out the corners just so they're nice and gently rounded, and then chasing the inside with the jigsaw. When I drill out for these holes, using that 3/4 inch Forstner bit, I go in 4 and over 4 squares, and that's where I put the point of the Forstner bit so that it's in the exact same spot for each corner instead of trying to eyeball it, on the rounded part and then come over here and now it's moved. It's a nightmare. So line it up on the grid using those points, and then to cut nice straight lines with the jigsaw, setting 0 so it's not going too fast. Your blade is inside the guides. This is actually to cut laminate, and it is the best blade I have ever had for my jigsaw. I don't know. I like them. I wouldn't dare touch a piece of sandpaper to the outsides because everything's got to get glued up. However, it is a lot easier to sand this inside piece while I can go like this versus this. I've got 2 easy methods to sand anything that might have happened like this. One, just pick up what's called a rasp from Harbor Freight. Get them online. I'd buy a nicer set than these because the handles are dinky. It works. It works. It was like $4. You just put them in there. Sand away. It's going to make it really rough, so you're going to have to sand it after you do this, but it'll get your generic shape the way that it should be. Then you could go back into sand. And the other option, pick up one of these beauties. Again, Amazon, probably Harbor Freight. It just is a little drum that has a piece of sandpaper on it. You can put this into your drill press. You can put it just into a drill. Just note that the drills and stuff, they are not built to have pressure going this direction, just up and down. So be careful with them. Don't use your super nice drill. And you could sand the interiors of these. So whatever method you choose, get the insides sanded so that they look nicer prior to glue up. Maybe you call a wizard. I don't know. I don't know your life. And generally, glue up is my favorite time of the day because it means I can go sit down. Not a lot I can do after glue up. If you guys use that Elmer's stick glue, come on. Embarrassing. Pulls off like a dream. If you guys wish to give this little breathy hole a nice rounded over edge for the interior, now is the time to do so. Otherwise, it's all going to be glued and sandwiched together. You're going to lose your opportunity. For glue, I'm going to glue this spot, not a lot of glue. I don't want it to be runny because once I sandwich it down, I'm going to have to clean all of the glue out of the interior because that's where the phone's sliding. It's what you see. I don't want glue to be there. Same thing, glue the top, put this together, clamp, wait till tomorrow. And be sure to clean up any of the glue residue on the inside of the project because, like concrete, it's a lot easier to do while it's wet. Now they're dry, starting to take shape. Looking pretty good. Let's head on over to the sander. For this sanding step, you're going to learn that this one is much easier than this just because I can run all of my edges around the sander. If you guys don't have a belt sander, orbital sander will do it just fine. There's not a whole lot to kiss off. Just run an 80 grit sandpaper. It'll get everything looking beautiful. This one here, I will have to do a little hand sanding. I got to fix that spot anyway. I got to get this sanded, these sanded, this sanded. The bottom is going to be a little messy. But look how cute the little feet are. So fire up your sander. And remember to keep these bevels. You don't want them to just push straight down because it's going to be straight. So you want to kind of rock it back and forth a little bit. You'll see me get the angle set in. Here we go. If you have any tricky, hard to get in places like the bottom of the feet, you can just throw a piece of sandpaper on just a metal ruler, get in there, use a piece of wood, all the same. And also make sure that you guys are sanding these little spots where the phone goes in. This one I have not sanded, looks pretty rough. This one I did sand. It looks a lot cleaner, a lot nicer. It's not going to scratch your phone up when you drop it in there. If you really want to fancy things up, I'm just using a simple round over bit. I'm going to go around the screen entrance, around the back spot, around the screen. And this one I am going to do around the entire body. This one I am not, just because of the feet on the bottom. I don't want to router it. It's obviously not going to get in these little crack spots. I don't want to try to have to hand sand all those. So I'm just going to gently round this over by hand. And that round over bit is your best friend. Well, it's my best friend. I just like the look of it. I think it kind of mimics what, that chunky TV would look. It had those gentle rounded edges that I've seen in pictures. The earliest TV I can remember was the plasma that was like this wide and would heat your home. It weighed like 600 pounds. That's the first TV I remember. We might have had one of these. I don't. With this design, you're set in stone with having the feet on the bottom. This design, you can put the feet on either side to put the controls on either side. You just can't put the feet on this side. That's going to look silly. So pick a side if you had some goobers you wanted to hide in the top. Now, I had bought a bunch of these feet because I super liked them. And they're growing on me, I guess. I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that's still pretty cool. With these feet, it does have these little tongs that stick out because it recesses into the wood since there's a design, so it doesn't spin around. And, you don't have a knob like this and a knob like this. So, great design. File those off. Use the belt sander. Just kiss it real quick. Get these removed. These guys, obviously, they don't have one, so you're good to go. It just depends on which kind of knob style you're buying. I did also find this one. You just want a knob that's relatively small, kind of would look like a TV foot. I'm going to put the controls on the other side. So they're going on this end here. You're going to grab this little beauty. I am going to super rough measure in 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches. I already made the lines. And then we're going to bump in 1/2 inch. So there we have our markings for the feet. 1.5 inches in, 1/2 inch down. 2 of those with the screen. The back, he gets just 1/2 inch in, centered. So I have 3. If you want to go with 4 feet, you could. 3 feet. I wouldn't do 2, even though these, they got some space. I wouldn't do 2. I'd still do the 3. With your holes marked, you are going to drill down about 3/8 of an inch so you don't actually go into where the phone is going to be resting. With a drill bit that matches the diameter of the threads for your screws. I've chosen to go with these little feet here because I haven't used them yet and they're pretty hefty. Single out those screws with a pair of pliers. Make sure that you're not damaging the threads. Don't grip down on them too tight. And I generally cut off about half of it so that I have 5/8 of an inch left of the screw. You mainly just want to remove the head so that way you can shove it down into the TV. I'm using a metal disc on my Dremel. You could also just use a hacksaw if you wish. And be sure to set the sizzle and hot parts down on something metal so that they don't burn your workbench. It's just an all-purpose super weld. It's essentially super glue, but it says it works better on metal, and I found that this one works a little bit better than regular old super glue. I'm going to squirt a little bit of it into here. Hold on. All right, I had a little hardened in the tip. Squeeze this guy out, and then the part that we had cut off is what I shove into the project. I like that to just be down. That way I don't have to worry about the threads messing up. Grab your hammer. Make sure that they're straight up and down and they're not crooked or offset in some way, because then you will see that in these once that dries. And we're going to move on to making the little knobs that go on the side. These are also easy breezy. You're just going to grab a hole saw. It's just a 1/2 inch cheapy one from Lowe's, probably Home Depot, any big box store. And you are going to drill a hole into a board. Now, make sure you have your arbor in here when you do this, because now we need to remove the arbor. If you don't have your arbor in it, you're going to have a bad time. So use your arbor, drill out a hole. That one is trash because it's got a hole in the center. Then we are removing that center arbor. There's just a screw right here on the side. You remove that, pull the arbor out. Now, we don't have anything in there. And with this, I can take one of the holes that I have just drilled, set it on top of my project so that this isn't bouncing around, and drill out a hole. I generally do this on the ground on top of a piece of styrofoam and use my foot as a sort of clamp down method. I go in reverse for just the first couple of seconds just so it doesn't gar up the top, and then finish out my cut. I believe I failed to mention these are 1/4 inch thick pieces of wood, just some scrap. I have the aspen to match, and then I have just some oak. I think it looks good with the black walnut. Now that I got these done, they're kind of gross, so sand them. Before I attach the knobs, I want to stain the main TV part of the project. And that's because if you wanted to paint these knobs, or say this was actually a dark walnut stain and this was just a natural stain, I'm just going to be using a Minwax natural stain for these, using a cut piece of towel. I'm going to tell you a story when I stained this one here. So we were about to have an ice storm, and I was trying to be a responsible adult and pull my wiper blades up, and you can't. They hit the hood. And I was like, what? And actually, four days into owning my vehicle, some lady hit me. And so I wondered if that's why, is because, oh, they fixed it and the hood's up too high. And it's like a 1/2 inch away from fitting. So I asked the dealership when it was in there for the oil change. I said, I really hate this car. You can't bring the wiper blades up. And he's like, oh, well, there's a way that you can bring them up. So I wanted to share it with you guys in case this is a national problem. And what you do is you turn your car, you're driving your car, you turn your car off, you put it in accessory mode, auxiliary mode, whatever, just so that the dash is on, the engine is not. And you pull on your windshield wiper like you want fluid. You pull that for like 3 seconds, and your wipers will stop at the top instead of, becoming wipers. So they'll stop at the top, and that way you can maintenance them, or you can pull them up for an ice storm. And I guess the point of the story is that now I have to know 3 days in advance if there's going to be an ice storm so that I can pull my wiper blades up. Why don't you just leave them so I can pull them up? Why was that wasn't even a problem? And what did you say? What aerodynamic gas saver did I get by not having to be able to pull my wiper blades up? It's a teaching channel. It doesn't always have to be about woodworking. Just going to let this dry till tomorrow. Only 2 things left to do. 1, screw these feet into the bottom. Ta-da. And we need to attach the knobs to the fronts if you don't think this is perfect as it is. I don't. I want the knobs. I like to keep the boogery spot where I punched it out of the hole saw. That goes down. So I like to keep them like this. Punch spot. Could have sanded it out. No need to. I like the grain direction to match the grain direction of the TV. I don't like them. I think they look poopy like that. And I'm going to just eyeball these. As for the delightful little pillow that could go behind the phone, It's a complete option. If you want to do it, you can. This board, it was just really wide, so I had to add this in to bring the phone up against the front of the display. These guys, it's a smaller opening, 3/4 of an inch. If you have a phone case on your phone, if it's a little chunky, it'll fit in here fine. You won't need this additional pillow, but they do look kind of nice and cool. If you're adding the pillow, you might as well skip cutting out and sanding and routing and spending time on this opening because you're gonna block it anyway, and it can just be solid. To get this done, you can either grab just some fabric. I've got this piece of faux leather that we've got in the craft room. That'll work. Right here, the cushioning, it's a piece of towel that I cut off to use to stain stuff with. That's what I'm using. It's nothing fancy. It adds a nice little cushion. It's nice. It's soft. I bet it'd feel good on your cheek if you could get it there. Nothing fancy. Everyone's going to be like, ooh la la. It doesn't matter. You're going to need a piece of wood that fits inside of your opening. A little bit smaller because you're going to be wrapping fabric around the outside of it. Don't make it super tight. And a little bit of duct tape. This is where we really start cutting corners on cost. I'm going to rip this piece of duct tape into 3 strips. And I'm going to rip one of those strips in half. This is very sticky. It's Gorilla duct tape. Ooh. For this demo, I am not adding in the towel because it's not going to leave me a lot of room for the phone to fit in there. And unlike this one that I did glue into place, I'm not gluing this one. So they can take it in and out if they please. It's just a nice little addition. So you're going to cut your piece of fabric, or you're going to cut this guy to be just larger than your board. I'm going to put this on top. The little skinny pieces of tape, we're going to use in a minute. I do the long sides first. Easiest way to do it, take that duct tape, put it so it's about half on here, half off, like that. I'm going to take it like this, put pressure down, and roll it around. Just like so. And I'm going to repeat for that other side. This time, ooh, so sticky, it took a chunk of my workbench. Now I'm going to push to make it so it's tight. The corners, doing that same thing. And just look at that.
For forever, loathing, truly, deeply loathing, yeah. My whole life long.
Ooh, another video. That's what you guys should be doing. Watching Who's the Boss on your tiny TV. And then clicking on another video.